Hi, hello, and welcome, and in my case, good morning. Welcome to a new video. If you are new here, my name is Tasmin, and I am an author of, wait, I have the book, of this book, The Anatomy of Waves, and also of Welcome Home, Dear Soul, which is this book. And I make videos here on YouTube about books, sustainability, and what most of you are interested in, my life on the Azores archipelago. I moved from Germany to the Azores archipelago, which is an island archipelago that belongs to Portugal but is autonomous and is in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean and consists of 9 teeny tiny islands, and on one of them I do spend most of my time. Lately I couldn't do a lot of island content, and as I said in my channel update, that is something that will continue to be like that. The island content is coming. There is something super exciting on its way. I just cannot share it just yet. So I urge you to be a bit more patient and enjoy my bookish videos instead, which I enjoy a lot making because I love books. Yeah, the island content is coming again. I just don't know when. To be honest, I just don't have a lot of time, and there is a lot of stuff that I want to update you guys on, and I just can't just yet. So yeah, bear with me. Island content is coming. I hope today's video is going to make up for it a little bit, because I'm going to talk about island life. I'm just not going to show you anything because I frankly can't right now. Today's video is all about questions you should ask yourself before moving to the Azores archipelago. And I have a few disclaimers here, but please listen, don't skip them. First of all, the Azores archipelago consists of 9 islands, and all 9 islands are very, very different from each other. I personally live on Pico Island, which means my experience is very heavily based on Pico Island. I'm trying to make these kind of videos as general as possible, but it is very likely that someone that lives, for example, on São Miguel Island or Terceira Island has a different experience from mine and cannot relate as much to what I am about to say or what I talk about in the video, because all 9 islands are completely different from one another. They might belong together and they have a baseline of the same culture, but the living experience on every single island is completely unique and different from one another, so I cannot speak for all 9 islands. I can just, and that is the second disclaimer, I can just and only speak upon my own experience. You might disagree with me. If you do, feel free to let me know in the comments, but please do so in a polite way. The last video that I did, where I talked about some negative aspects of the Azores, I got a lot of hate from people who thought I hated it here, or people who just had a different experience and got very, very angry somehow that my experience was different from theirs, or my perspective was different from theirs. And I urge you to, if you leave a comment or if you have a different experience, hey, let me know. Just please be polite. I'm a human being and I'm talking about my own personal experience, and if yours is different than mine, cool, let me know. But be nice about it, because otherwise I'm gonna block you, or like I had to do with the other video, I'm gonna block the entire comment section. Which is a shame, because I think this could be a fantastic resource for people who are thinking about moving to the Azores or just have the dream of coming here one day. This could be a fantastic resource to read about a bunch of different experiences from people that all have different lives and different adventures that they've been on and different problems that they had to face. And yeah. So please keep it nice in the comments down below so I don't have to deactivate them again. And disclaimer number 3 is very much connected to the other one. If you are one of those people who found me through that video where I talked about the downsides of the Azores and got very, 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 very angry with me, called me names, threatened my life, or whatever the hell was going on. Like, there were a lot of people that were very, very triggered, and a lot of these people followed me here on YouTube and on other platforms. If you are one of those people, there is a wonderful, wonderful little red X on the top of your browser or on your phone. You do not have to watch my channel. Actually, I urge you not to watch my channel, because I don't have time or energy for your hate and the fact that you are triggered by someone else's life experience. I am not here, and I said that in the other video a billion times over, I'm not here to spread hate or negativity in any way. 99% of my content here on YouTube is very positive and talks about my love for the Azores archipelago. I mean, I gave up my entire life. I gave up my entire life to live here. And if you were just here to spread hate or to get angry over me, then please just leave this video. I don't know why you're wasting your time and energy and my time and energy with all of this. Just leave. If you don't like me, that's fine. You're entitled to your opinion, but just leave. Just leave this channel. Please leave me alone and save yourself the time and energy. Just know that I love this place, and every negative thing that I say is just based upon my own personal experience, and if you don't agree, that's fine, but just disagree in silence maybe. Okay, now that that is out of the way, and hopefully the people have left who last time threatened my life over me saying that there is mold in the walls, but anyway, let's get to the actual questions. So if you've seen any of the My Story videos, you know that me moving to the Azores was not very impulsive thing. Well, it depends, but like my journey of actually settling down here was a journey over multiple years. It was a very long journey with a lot of ups and downs, and a lot of times like going back to Germany, then coming back, going back and forth a lot. So it was never like, okay, I'm gonna pack my bags and I'm gone. I tried to do that with my one-way ticket and it didn't quite work out, but you can hear all about that in the My Story videos if you want to know in more detail what my personal journey was. But I know that a lot of people, especially nowadays, are more like on the impulsive side of things, who are like, oh my god, I've been on the island for a week of holiday, it's so beautiful, I'm going to buy a house and move here. And I just got dripped on by a tree because it's raining. And I totally understand that urge. I'm just also urging you to think. Even though I personally, in my journey, took a lot more time to finally settle, it still felt like a very naive thing to do because I didn't really ask myself some very important questions. And I want you to listen to the questions that I should have asked myself before moving here, even though I personally do not have any regrets because I have very positive answers to all of these questions. But you might not, and I want to give that to you, and so you can decide if this is actually a place that you want to live, like long term. The first question you should ask yourself is, do you know all 9 islands? As I mentioned previously, the Azores archipelago consists of 9 tiny islands who are all vastly different from one another. Again, there is a baseline of like cultural stuff, and like the climate of course is very similar on all 9 islands, things like that, but in general the living experience on every single one of these islands is vastly different than on the neighboring island. So if you actually thinking of moving here, especially moving here like long term, you should know all the islands, or at least maybe half of them. You should have visited at least half of them and know a summer vacation where you make island hopping is not enough to make this decision or to get any idea of how life here is. I know how tempting it is when you're here for like a week or 2 in the summer, either only on one island or you're doing a little bit of island hopping, like getting the best of multiple islands, and you're just traveling around and the sun is shining and the weather is great and it's fun and you're on vacation and it's holiday and it's nice and you're like, oh my god, I want to live here. I get that urge, I had it myself. But that would be a grave mistake to do, to be here for just a week in the summer on one of the islands, or like just 1 or 2 days on each island and then deciding to buy a house or moving here for good. That would be a grave mistake, and I urge you to get to know the islands in all seasons and as many islands as you possibly can before you decide to settle down. The second question I have for you is, are you ready to be isolated? I think people completely underestimate how isolated the islands are because we do have access to, well, electricity, internet and groceries and all these kind of things, but we are in the middle of nowhere. Every time you want to see your friends, wherever they may live, you will have to fly, and flight connections are not always the best, they are also not always cheap, and you live on a tiny island in the middle of nowhere, literally, and there are also not that many people. Maybe you're lucky, maybe you find connections and friendships very, very quickly, But maybe you're like me and you struggle a little bit with that. Or you find people that then after a year or two or after the summer ends are leaving. So are you ready to be isolated? Because it can get a bit lonely here, especially like in the winter time when you don't have a lot of festivities going on and there's just in general not a lot to do because it's constantly raining. And are you ready that your packages take forever to arrive and you will probably not see friends and family as often as you would like, and you cannot just simply ding, take a train and be there in an hour? You always have to take a flight. So are you ready to be isolated? A little note on that little question is also think about the future. The climate is rapidly changing. We don't know what's going to happen in the world. There's currently a war going on. The oil prices are going insane and the climate is going crazy. So if you move here for good, keep in mind that maybe one day the world will change in a way that you cannot leave, or that our access on the islands is very limited to the rest of the world, including groceries and things being delivered here and traveling between here and anywhere else. There might come a time where all of that becomes very, very, very difficult, and then you're truly isolated. Then this right now feels like absolute globalization and you will be hella isolated one day. So keep that in mind, because you never know when that day comes, and it might come tomorrow. The next question is, are you patient? I have to say, I am one of the most impatient people on the planet. And this island taught me how to be patient the hard way, because you really need to be patient living here. Not only when it comes to cows on the road that are blocking your way, and like bad drivers and people parking in random places, and you just woozah, you know, like have to calm yourself down when things are not going as fast as you want. But all the other things also take a lot of time. Like, people don't show up when they promise to show up, people don't text you back, people don't call you back, and it's always like this. You always need to be super patient, because things in 99% of the time work out in the end. It just always takes very long, and you need to cut people a lot of slack, and you need to just be very, very patient. Also, again, with things like deliveries, like you order something and it takes at least 1 month to arrive, and then sometimes it arrives damaged, and like you just need to be very, very patient with everyone and everything on this island. And if you're like me and you're very impatient, this is something you will definitely have to learn the hard way, because there is no way around it. If you're not patient, you're not gonna survive here. The next question is, are you ready to be immersed in the culture? This is something I think a lot of people don't think of, especially the type of people who come here on a summer vacation and are tourists, and everybody is just there, you know, to serve them, and then they buy a house and then they're like, oh wait, I have no idea how the culture actually is like in this place. And it is definitely something that I myself have to work on. It is something that is near and dear to my heart, but it is something that I could still do better. For example, o meu português é muito, muito mal. Mal. I don't even know what the correct word is. Like, my Portuguese is very, very bad, and it's something that I should definitely prioritize way more, learning Portuguese. Languages are hard, okay? Anyway, I personally can still do it better, but it is something that is very, very near to my heart, especially because I see a lot of people just building summer houses here, or making up their own little communities of like-minded people, and just being completely separate from the actual island culture. And as someone who studied cultural anthropology, it is really something that really hurts me to see what is happening here right now, that like a lot of people coming here do not immerse themselves in the culture in the slightest, and have no interest to do so, and that the culture therefore is dying because a lot of the young people from the islands have to leave. We'll talk about that in a second, but it's just a difficult thing. And I think you should, if you decide to move into another country, you should be aware that you are always just a guest. You will never be a local, no matter how hard you try, no matter how good your Portuguese is, no matter how many matanzas you went to. You will always just be a guest. You are an immigrant. When you move here, you are an immigrant, and you need to deal with that, and you need to immerse yourself with the culture. And that culture might not be very appealing to you because it is rooted in a lot of hard work, it is rooted in a very slow lifestyle, it is also rooted in a lot of meat eating and fish eating, like going out for fishing, having huge feasts and like slaughtering a pork and things like that. And it's also very much rooted in Christianity. Like, I personally am not practicing Christian by any means, but I completely respect that this is like such a huge part of what shaped the islands and their culture. So if you have a problem with Christianity, I'm not saying you need to be Christian to live here, absolutely not. Again, I'm not a practicing Christian, but and a lot of people that I know that live here are also not. But like, if you have a problem with people being very, very religious and very Christian, and like you have churches everywhere and every other festivity is about Jesus and Christianity, if you have a problem with that, this place is not for you. And I think you should really try to really, really immerse yourself in the culture. It's not enough to just see it and know about it, but you should really immerse yourself with it as much as you can and just show people respect. Which leads me to my next question, which is, do you respect older people? If you hear weird dripping sounds, it just started raining. I'm standing under a tree, but let's see how long I can stay here. I'm gonna try and make the rest of the video a bit quicker. I know I talk a lot, okay? So the thing about Azorean people is that most of them are very old. And that is not because they don't have children, it is just because that most younger people don't live on the islands because there are no job opportunities. Gonna talk about that in a second. The people here don't have a lot of opportunities, or at least they don't see them, or they're not being created, and a lot of people just who grew up here and who spent all their lives on a tiny island, and they know every single person and every single cow and every single car, and they just want to get out, or they have to get out. And so a lot of the younger people are living in the US, in Canada, in mainland Portugal, or somewhere else around the globe, and trying to make ends meet and experiencing a very different kind of life. And a lot of the people that are still living here are therefore older people who A, never left, or B, came back after a life abroad. And if you don't respect older people, back the fuck off, leave, because those old people are the backbone of this island archipelago, and they are amazing and lovely and so kind. Most of them are so kind and generous. If you cannot respect old people, just no. The next question is, do you have a problem with people knowing you? I know, out of personal experience, that it is very, very, very tempting to have this thought process of, oh my god, I'm going to move to a tiny island in the middle of nowhere where no one knows my name, and I get a fresh start because no one knows me, and you know, I can start anew, and I'm just by myself, and I can figure myself out because no one knows who I am. Let me tell you, this feeling on this island lasts maximum a month. Because then, as soon as people realize you're not a tourist and you're staying, people get curious and they want to know who you are. And even if they don't approach you and you've never spoken to them, you've never even seen their faces, they will know who you are. Let me tell you, people will know who you are, and they will also talk behind your back. Again, I talked about this in the other video. It's not with bad intention, at least in like 99% of the cases, it's not with bad intention, but people will talk about you, and they will make up stories if you don't tell them who you are. Like, they're just gonna make up stuff, and that's just how it is here. It's a tiny island. You will also get to know everyone. You will recognize people's cars, people's dogs. You will immediately know if somebody is home or not when you pass by their house. You know, like, it's a tiny island and a tiny community, and people know each other, and you will be a part of the community one way or the other, as integrated or not integrated as you will be, as you want to be. But people will know who you are. This feeling of, oh my god, nobody knows my name, I have a fresh start. Again, maximum a month. Then that is over. And then everyone knows who you are, or at least they think they know who you are, and one day you learn things about yourself that are A, not true, and B, you didn't know about yourself either. Do you depend on luxuries? this is a question for everybody that has a better lifestyle. For example, people from Germany, so people where I come from. How dependent are you on luxuries? This is a serious question. This is not a joke question because it can be very challenging for some people. I know that it has been challenging for me in the first couple of months because I didn't even realize how many luxuries I had in my life before that. I thought I had, because in Germany, if I'm in Germany, I don't have a lot of money, so I'm like almost lowest class of people. Like in Germany we have a say untere Mittelklasse. It's like when you're like lower in society and financially, but you're not like completely poor and on the street. I don't know if there's a term for that in English, I'm sorry. But yeah, it's not like I ever had a lot of money, but still there were luxuries that I was not aware of because I took them completely for granted. And coming here, I had to realize, oops, they are in fact luxuries and I am in fact privileged in that way. And I just had no idea. And now I have to deal without these kind of things. People who come here love the simplicity of life. But the downside of the simplicity is that things are simple, and that means no luxuries. There are not a shit ton of restaurants, at least on Pico Island and a lot of the smaller islands. I know São Miguel and Terceira are different in this regard, but again, speaking for Pico Island, we do have restaurants, we just don't have a lot of them, and they're not super diverse. Like, there's no Mexican restaurant, there's no Greek, there's no Arabic food, there's no vegan restaurant, any of these kind of things. Like if you are someone who loves to go out for dinner, I'm not crazy about going out for dinner, but I do sometimes appreciate it, you know? And after living here for multiple years, I know most of the restaurants and I'm already getting a bit bored with it. But for me, it's nothing that I need to survive. It's nothing that is very important to me. So for me, that is fine. But there are people who love to go out for dinner. And here, unless you find like a favorite restaurant that you can go to over and over and over and over again, it will get boring for you eventually, and you might miss that. And also things like heating systems don't really exist here. And just in general, like a bunch of like luxury things that you might take for granted in your country and in your culture might not exist here or are just very, very hard to come by. Again, this is not a negative thing, it is just something that people need to ask themselves before they move here, because I know so many people who buy a house here out of the blue and then just get so surprised, like, what do you mean there is no heating system? And like, yeah, no, we don't have heating systems here. Or people who are just like, oh, just go shopping or just go to a clothes swap or like a vintage shop, go do some thrifting. No, doesn't exist here. Like, we have a few clothing shops that I cannot judge at all because I've never been to a single one of them. Because shopping is not a priority for me at all. But if that is something that is important to you, if like regular shopping trips are important to you or certain brands are important to you, you don't really have access to that here. And if you want to order online, some brands and some companies don't ship to the Azores. So you need to find another way. Next question, can you handle the climate? And the rain is getting stronger, so perfect timing for this question. To summarize the climate, it is very humid. Which means the summers feel a lot hotter than they are and the winters feel a lot colder than they are. I have a lot of discussions with people who do not understand that when our temperature in the wintertime says it's 15 degrees, that it feels like 3 degrees. And that I'm colder here than I am in Germany sometimes. Actually, one time I went back to Germany after spending the winter here, and I went back to Germany and it was the beginning of spring. It was still very, very cold in Germany, and on the temperature scale it was way colder in Germany than it was here. But in Germany I didn't turn on the heating system. I was so warm. I was running around in a t-shirt all the time and my mom thought I went completely insane. I had lost my mind because it was so cold, but it felt completely different because it was so dry in Germany, when in comparison to here everything's so humid that the cold like creeps into your bones. And also in the summer the heat feels a lot stronger because of the strong humidity or the high humidity. And I talked about this in the other video also, like you will have mold everywhere. You can clean your house as good as you can every single week. You will have mold at some point, everywhere, not only on the walls, like on your clothes, on your clay pots, on on wood, on your furniture. You will have mold at some point somewhere in your life. There is no escaping the mold. No matter how much you clean, how much you have the dehumidifier running, like especially in the winter when it can sometimes rain for like weeks on end without giving you a break. The humidity is strong. So if you have a problem with humidity, this climate might not be for you. And also, as you can see behind me, this is an island with a lot of plants and a lot of nature, which is fantastic and I love it. But if you are someone who is very, very allergic to pollen, you might want to live in a city, because there are a lot of plants here and a lot of flowers here and a lot of farming here as well. So if you're very sensitive to pollen and just nature stuff flying around, think about it. But if you're like me, I mean, isn't this fucking awesome? The rain is getting stronger, so let me finish up with one last question you should ask yourself before moving here. And that is the question, what are you going to work? How are you going to earn your money? This is a question I should have asked myself before buying that one-way ticket. And luckily for me personally, it has worked out over time. I'm a freelancer now. I'm a freelance writer and translator, and I'm an author and a creative and a creator. So I can make ends meet. But it is very difficult to find a job here. This is one of the main reasons a lot of the young people and younger people leave the island archipelago, because there are simply no job opportunities. Most people here work in farming and in cattle, like raising cows for meat and milk industry, or they work in the tourism industry. And the tourism industry, however, is mostly active in the summer, so like 90% of tourism jobs just don't exist in the wintertime, which can be a problem for some people when you like half of the year do not have an income, and the other half of the year your income is very low. That's another thing. A Portuguese or Azorian salary is not very high. Most people only earn like minimum wage, which is around 700 euros per month. And some people cannot get by with that. Some people can. It completely depends on your lifestyle and who you are and how you live and where you live. And again, like for example, on São Miguel and Terceira Island, there are lots more opportunities than, for example, on Pico. But in general, that is the general idea. Like if you don't work in farming or in tourism, it's very, very hard to find a job, especially as a foreigner. I'm not saying it's impossible, but it is difficult. That is why so many Azorians leave the islands behind even when they don't want to, because they just don't find jobs here or don't find anything that interests them, because there are just not a lot of like diverse opportunities, especially in the area of work, but also in terms of like cultural, social activities. Like on Pico, for example, we don't have a cinema. So yeah, that is definitely a massive question you need to ask yourself, especially if you are younger and you still have a lifetime ahead. And let me tell you, I'm anti-capitalistic, so I don't agree with the need to be productive all the time and like working 50 hours a week, you know, like I don't agree with any of these concepts, but unfortunately, we do live in a society where we have to pay rent and where we have to pay bills and where we have to have some kind of income one way or the other to make ends meet and to be able to survive. And especially if you're looking to buy a house, of course, you also need to have an income. If you're looking to ask for a loan at a bank, if you cannot afford to buy it all cash, you also need to have the proof that you have a job, and a job that you will not lose anytime soon, and things like that. So that is definitely a question you need to consider. Like, are you that rich that you don't need it? Then I'm surprised you want to live here, but cool, hey, fantastic. Or like, are you maybe a freelancer like me and it doesn't bother you where you are as long as you have an internet connection? Or do you really need to ask yourself that question like I should have done the first time? Because there are just not a lot of opportunities, and you cannot just come here and like jump on the job market and expect you will find a great, fantastic job that gives you a lot of joy and pays you very well within like 2 weeks. Like, it's very likely that this type of job doesn't even exist here for you. So that is a question you should ask yourself. Okay, the rain is getting stronger and stronger. I need to go before I get soaked. And before my camera gets soaked as well. I hope you all have a fantastic day. I hope this video was helpful to you. And I hope we see each other in my next video. Goodbye!